Welcome, dear listeners, to a podcast that's about to transform the way you lead, the way you grow and thrive in your life and career. Get ready to embark on a journey filled with inspiration and self-discovery. This is Afsheen, the host of the Getting Real podcast. And this season, I'm delighted to be joined by none other than my co-host, Vicki Davitashvili. Vicki?
Are you ready to embrace the joy of leadership, the power of self-discovery, and the limitless potential of your career, and ultimately your entire life? Join us on this incredible journey of transformation.
Yep, stay tuned because the best is yet to come. So I know this is super important to you and me, Vicki. I know that it's in the context of the world today, and also really just how things have been over the past 3 years with COVID and conflicts in different parts of the world. I'm finding that leaders are, and just we as just human beings are finding ourselves sort of increasingly in a place where we need to have greater mastery over having sensitive discussions and holding a safe space for these conversations to happen.
There's so much going on in the world right now. And it's not about where you land or what side you sit on. This is not about that. What this is as a leader, do you acknowledge what's happening? And if so, how do you handle a sensitive conversation like that, which can be extremely polarizing? And this doesn't have to even pertain just to what's happening right now. There's a lot of sensitivity going on in the world, and we're constantly having as leaders to, not live in a bubble, but having to address and have open, candid, sensitive, non-biased conversations. And I think that where we wanted to take this discussion today is give everybody some tools and insights into how do you handle circumstances like these, where you are, where you as a leader do need to bring up these topics, and how do you do it? And so, I thought that I would kick it off and just say it's interesting in that there are, events happening outside of us right now. And I've noticed that we've had leaders who have chosen not to talk about it at all, and they pretend like they don't exist. And then we've had leaders where I've been in meetings, my peers, who have chosen to bring up the topics and come at it from a place of, if you're impacted in any way, or, if you want to talk about it, please know that I'm here, I'm open, and that I'm available. Or do you want to talk about this in this group setting, right? And really creating this space, the safe space for the conversation to take place. And I've noticed that the meetings in which this had been brought up as literally the first topic before we would get into any business agenda, it somehow created a softness in the room where people felt seen and acknowledged. And I think that it's really important as a leader to make everybody feel seen and acknowledged. And it's, again, not about taking sides. It's about, I know this is happening. I know it might be affecting you. And I'm here for you. I am the safe space for you to come and to be your whole, authentic, vulnerable self. And I wonder, Afsheen, if you could maybe share some principles or frameworks for how to open up conversations like that, how to have these conversations, and where do we as leaders go with this?
For me, a couple of things come to mind. First is, and you and I reflected on this earlier as well, is it takes two parts of us, or it takes two skill sets. One is the skill of being, and then the other is that part of doing. So how do you want to be? And I think you've touched on that. What are some of the ways you want to consciously be that will help you effectively hold that space? And then what are some of the ways, or what are some of the tools you might use to do that effectively as well? And for me, the being aspect is so incredibly important, because we're so action oriented, we're so results driven. We always think about, okay, what's that tool that we can use? But often what's really making the difference between how everybody in the world uses that tool is how that one individual puts themselves in the right headspace to be able to leverage that tool as simply an enabler. And so for me, the right headspace goes back to a lot of the words that you've shared, a lot of the approaches that you've shared. It's around being non-judgmental, being ready to hear some things that you might not have considered before, some perspectives that you might not have been aware of before. It's there's this book I've been reading by Adam Grant called Think Again. And so being ready to think again on a topic that you might have thought of in just one way for even 20, 30 years, right? So being ready, and that readiness to think again requires us to be ready, to be open, to be curious, to be empathetic, and to be inclusive. I think that's such an important piece. Are you ready to be inclusive in what it is you might hear that might be different from what it is you've heard so far? And I think that is really the first step. And then it's that next step of, after I've done that, and maybe that is something you do before you walk into a bigger meeting, before you walk into a one-on-one, is where am I with my being? As in line with my intention. And then taking that next step. So what do you think, Vicki? What comes up for you as I say that?
The one word that you just used that sparked, the light within me is curious. I think so many times we are based on our, the perspectives that we have gained throughout our lives or what have you. We definitely have a very set way in which we think about things. And we, as we grow up, tend to be less and less curious. Children are curious all the time. I take my dog out for a walk. He's constantly curious. He's constantly sniffing something, looking for something. He's always in an energy of curiosity. As adults, we get less and less curious. And as a result of not being curious, we become very rigid and set in our ways. But I think that as the world around us continues to shift and evolve, and we're really needing to be more and more accepting of maybe the things that we never understood before, bringing an energy of at least curiosity and non-judgment completely changes the dynamic of both the interactions, but more importantly, of the relationships that you have both professionally and personally. And curiosity comes from a place within. This is not something that you can acquire. Curiosity is setting yourself up and opening yourself up to being willing to ask the questions and to hear what is being said. And I can share some ways in which I am retraining myself to be more curious in conversations, because I don't know about you or, you listening, I'm one of those people who loves to jump to conclusions. And interestingly enough, as leaders, we get paid to jump to conclusions pretty quickly, to look at data, to look at information, and then to, come up with a recommendation or a path forward fairly quickly and synthesize that content in your head. But as the soft side, the soft skill requires you to not be so fast in your judgment, to not be so fast in your thinking, but to continue to stay in an energy of curiosity and to ask the questions. Well, tell me more about that. Oh, what do you mean by that? What does that word mean to you? Right? And to continue to probe in rather than give your own perspective or your own answer on things. So I'll pause here. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
My thoughts are, you are so clever. As you were talking, I was thinking to myself about the framework that you and I have been sort of reflecting on, which is the HEAR framework, if you remember. Hear, empathize, ask, and respond, which I think is such a great, simple, and straightforward way to sort of guide yourself as the person holding the space through that conversation. Have you heard what is here to be said, let's say? Have you empathized with what is being said? Have you asked to understand more, to widen your perspective out of curiosity, as you so beautifully put it? And then have you responded with empathy and openness to what it is that has sort of presented itself in this conversation? So that's sort of what came up for me naturally as I heard you speaking to how often as leaders we're asked to make meaning from like small sets of data, but because the world is getting smaller, we have access to more data than we've ever had in our lives. We have more social media inputs. We have more news outlets. We have more ways to stay connected to our families who live in other parts of the world. We actually have so much more to process that we need to probably take a little bit more time and skills to process it effectively.
I love that. And maybe, Afsheen, I love the PDF that you have created. Maybe you can share that in the show notes, just so that everybody can get to see this amazing framework. And it's so simple. I love the simplicity of it. So, and this is just one tangible tool that you can have as a takeaway to really help guide you in those more sensitive conversations. And let's face it, sensitive conversations could be like you doing an annual review. Even in annual reviews, this framework still works. So that's what I really love about this HEAR. So HEAR, express gratitude, empathy, ask questions, be curious, and respond. Tell the other person that they're seen. I think just making somebody feel seen, heard, understood. If you as a leader can do that, you have done your job. So I love the conversation. Sorry, do you want to add something to that?
I am just inside celebrating, what a wonderful, meaningful conversation we've had on a really difficult topic, Vicki. And I feel really good about the fact that you and I have been able to partner together to lend our voice to this really important conversation.
Yes, same here. So stay tuned for a lot more. We're only getting started, Afsheen. I feel that as leaders and as humans, we have so much more to share, and we're so excited that you are here and that you are holding the space and learning, growing, evolving with us. And we're just so excited to go on this journey with you. Everything starts with you.
Stay tuned, because the best is yet to come.